Welcome to Finding Monster Right, the show about finding monsters, right?
Right. I'm Adam.
And I'm sorry that we had to make this a two-parter, but we just had to say so much about this book that kind of inspired our podcast, really.
Yes, Bigfoot Observer's Field Manual. If you want, you can give our last episode, episode 10, a listen to kind of catch up to where we are. Or you could just hop into the madness.
It will make as much sense, I promise.
Yeah. Might even be funnier.
Yeah.
That's the way that I treat this book for a long time.
And for those of you who are coming in from episode 10, welcome to episode 11, where things get a little hairy.
If someone's binging this, they're very mad right now. And not because we're making them listen to 2 hours of Bigfoot talk.
Because I did the hairy joke twice.
Yes, that's exactly why.
Well, hey, I'm T-posing in the woods, with my arms out. Come at me.
All right, enjoy the show. I think we're ready for step 6: creating a provocative routine. Pink tab here. Yeah, so he goes on to talk about how you want to appear markedly differently from other hikers so you can warrant their tolerance and attract closer investigation.
Oh, Can I just say, for anyone who judged me in the run-up to this step, I know what I'm talking about, and you're Robert W. Morgan in this situation, okay?
Yeah. So he talks about his, again, from that back to insanity. Quotes, I like to make ever-widening concentric circles around my campsite to discover the most logical direction they might choose to visit. I am usually wrong, but it keeps me thinking. Behave normally. Do not try to sneak up on the forest giants. Walk casually enough to allow your own observations, but don't bother trying to sneak around because your actions may remind them of hunters and put them on guard. If your routines seem predictable and safe, they may eventually follow you back to your camp. He's really trying to just seduce these giants to come hang out with him.
He's really trying to seduce these giants. I mean, oh boy. I mean, don't stop now. Keep reading, please.
Hint. Choose a single article of clothing, such as a distinctive and colorful hat, vest, or fanny pack that you will wear at all times, in or out of camp, to make yourself identifiable at a glance.
I mean, choose one item of clothing and take it off.
Yeah. It need not be a large or cumbersome item. Mm-hmm. Rest assured that the eyesight of a forest giant is sharp.
And you know what's sharper? Yeah. Their wit.
Yes.
Alright, please proceed.
Morgan.
I'm sorry for interrupting at all.
So, again, gets into really just a weird spot for I'm sorry. What was the word I used earlier? Starts with an E.
George Clinton.
No. It's a weird part to just. So he says, expect lulls in unusual activity from time to time. Don't let it discourage you. The forest giants are semi-nomadic, and they appear to revisit favorite areas over the course of a season. Weather and circumstances rather than a clock appear influential in these movements. So he's dropping the facts randomly in this, talking about provoking these giants.
I think the way you described this earlier was terrible prose. Exposition.
Yes. Exposition, thank you. Here's a little peek behind the Tremble veils here. Quote, have patience, and be as persistent as a bill collector. Unquote.
I now understand a little more about Robert W. Morgan's financial situation.
Yeah, how do you think he learned about the persistence of bill collectors?
I mean, he's never been able to live up to the reputation of his brother J.P. Morgan.
Nice.
Yep. That was a Banks joke. That was a joke about banks.
So now this, I want to get your scientific take on this one part, because I think he might have something here. He says to learn to read bark so you can distinguish oak from maple or elm. For example, if dozens of maple and oak branches are neatly stacked around a base of an elm tree, yet the nearest oak or maple is 50 yards away, pay attention. So he's outlining some activities forest giants might take part in, and you might know if they're nearby, if they're like moving sticks about. You think this is does that make sense, or is there any other kind of explanation?
I mean, sticks can happen for reasons that aren't Bigfoot, like a tree fell or a stick fell.
Well, he's saying those sticks are found far from where they are.
Oh, I see. So if there's like
in a maple grove, there's some elm branches.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, other animals can move sticks. Mm-hmm. The wind can blow sticks great distances. I don't think I'm not really a botanist, and every time I try and talk to a botanist, I fall asleep. But one of these days I'll get into my rankings of all the different fields of the life sciences. Botanists are low, but
I gotcha.
I don't think reading bark is a verb. I don't think that's a thing. I think that's a Robert W. Morgan original. Robert Wordsmith Morgan.
Yeah. So he talks about a little bit, quote, ponder this. What might appear interesting at distance to a forest giant, while also keeping you personally entertained? He talks about, hobbies that you might get into while you're waiting for a Bigfoot to show up. How about honing your sketching or painting skills? Talk about something that might intrigue a giant. There you sit, making none of those obnoxious noises that always seem to blast out from organized campgrounds. Instead, you habitually leave the beaten path to sit quietly amid open meadow with an easel, a palette.
Oh my god!
And lots of bright pencils and paints and charcoal sticks.
This is adorable. He's like painting himself as like the bookish girl who sits in the back of class and doesn't talk to anybody about her feelings, and like Bigfoot is like the jock who has feelings but has to hide them, and he's like, "Hey, babe, what are you drawing?" "Oh, it's nothing. It's just it's a drawing of a horse. Cool. Yeah, I like horses. Hey, we want to meet up after football practice." I'm writing fanfic now, but
yeah. No, I'm fine like this because Robert Morgan's playing tough to get. Here.
This is the most adorable thing I've ever heard.
In nice weather, leave your workout overnight. Let the forest giant come in safely to view those bright colors and interesting patterns.
Because he can't look at it in front of his bros, or else they'll judge him for being all artsy. But like that's who he is inside, and you can change him, Robert.
Yeah. No matter giants come in safely to view those bright colors and interesting patterns. No matter how crudely you do it, draw or paint yourself. Now, this is an image that he has said once before, and I want to talk about it after I describe it here. No matter how crudely you do it, draw or paint yourself standing with open hands before a family of smiling giants.
Okay, now we're kind of getting into some Close Encounters shit of like the smiling man.
It doesn't matter what you paint. It doesn't matter how bad it looks. The point is you're doing something outrageously different from the usual camper. That's exactly what you want to do.
This is like an X-Files episode for the Sasquatch.
Yeah, I just love that he has this image of himself as this messianic, like, bridge between worlds.
Your own Bigfoot Jesus.
He stands out in the middle of the woods with his arms outstretched. And just, he... like, ready to just give him a hug.
Just, like, T-pose in the woods for 12 minutes.
Yeah. He talks about learning how to play a recorder or flute. How about a harmonica, guitar, banjo?
Oh my god. Like...
don't make the mistake of one ranked amateur who dragged a full set of rock band drums into the nice, calm forest where he proceeded to bip, bap, smack, crack, and bam for hours on end. To no avail, of course.
Hey, can I say something honestly? I don't think that Bigfoot cares whether you have a ukulele or a drum set. And also, like, if we're talking about seducing a Bigfoot here, give me the fucking punk rock Bigfoot, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's the guy I want to show up.
I'm not gonna okay, Robert. I know that you're just like in the back there reading your Harry Potter books while like you're supposed to be paying attention in class because you just love reading so much and no one gets you. But like,
and by the way, Robert Morgan might suggest Animorphs. The author's a little more woke.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, that's very no. Okay, so this portrait I'm painting is not of someone who is it's more like Tumblr fan. All right, whatever.
I get it. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, no. Animorphs is good though. We got to talk about Animorphs one of these episodes.
Oh, absolutely. But yes, he moving along here. He talks about activities like making slides for a microscope. Out of nature around you and stuff like this. And this is he's an advocate of yoga and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Like this is all friendly things to do. And honestly, just doing this stuff out in the woods, like by yourself, that seems like a certain degree of therapy and good stuff for you.
Yeah. Doing yoga in the woods.
All right, so we get into the other thing. Robert Morgan has 3 hates. Number 3 is hippies. Number 2 is like other Bigfoot researchers.
Sure.
And number 1 is something that I want to delve into in this short story here. He talks about how he is in Florida, near Key West. It's really confusing. He's in the swamps. He's on an island. He's away from his usual thing, but he's near like a camp that, he's out in the wilderness, doing his Bigfoot hunting, and he encounters a group of Cub Scouts.
Oh.
So he's with a buddy of his, a buddy named, let's see, Ted Ernst.
Ted Ernst.
So, yeah, let's see, quote, "It was dawn before we dared to nod off. Nearing noon, we were startled awake by a dozen chattering boys as they headed up one trail and down another, followed by 2 grossly overweight Cub Scout leaders."
All right, that's mean.
Yeah. And yeah, he goes on to talk about them. Let's see.
How fat they are. He talks about.
We debated making a withdrawal, but decided instead to observe if the giants, if that's who had been rummaging around, might find these little Cub Scouts a curiosity. We stalked our pubescent baits after darkness had fallen. Yeah, that's he needs an editor, like for real.
Robert, don't.
Following dinners of hot dogs and charred marshmallows. Why do parents treat their children to junk food?
Robert,
the tubbiest troop leader decided to tell a horror story.
Robert, hey, Robert, I don't care how many marshmallows they eat. It's better than being stalked by 2 Bigfoot hunters. Also, you heard rustling in the bushes and you thought, aha, Bigfoot. And then Cub Scouts showed up and you were like, these fucking kids are going to scare Bigfoot away.
I think there's a little more details, but yes, you're right. He goes on to talk about how the Cub Scout leader, who he refers to as Mr. Chubbs.
Jesus, Robert. Like,
number 1 is he hates fat people.
Oh my god. I mean, wow, clearly. Hey, Robert, have you considered the fact that your OTP Bigfoot might be... Your OTP, you/Bigfoot, might be kind of fat because he lives in the woods and just sleeps with his wife in the sun all day?
So he tells it... So the Cub Scout leader tells a story about how a double-bladed axeman who's been dead for years, but there's an insane asylum burnt down and all that dumb stuff.
Sure.
But so what he wants to do... this is Robert Morgan's answer to hearing that story. Their leader droned on ominously, while gorily describing each murder. For exercise, my only reason, of course, I slow crawled out until I lay flattened less than a yard from the path trod by the waddling storyteller.
Robert, oh my god, don't. Robert? This is me as Ted, by the way.
I slipped my fingers through the grass like a 5-headed snake. Scant inches more from his bare ankles would be mine. How would Mr. Chubbs explain pooping his baggy shorts in full view of the entire troop.
Oh my god. You can't
Just
do
as my
this. This is a crime.
Just as my hand flexed open for that grab, a soft hoot of a hoarse owl issued from the woods behind me. I froze when Mr. Chubb twisted around. His foot came scant inches from my nose. Obviously blinded by the blazing fire, not thinking to look straight down, this purported master of wilderness arts could see nothing amid the darker shadows that surrounded his camp. I slow turned to see that owl named Ted waving me off.
Oh my god. Okay, well...
In my heart of hearts, I knew he was right. With regret, I reversed my slow crawl until it was only a yard or two from the screening bushes.
Okay, so fucking Ted over here, like...
the sane man Ted.
The Phantom over here, like... he's making owl hoots to distract people. Like, Ted is, like, that's a fucking weird move, Ted, and you're still the normal one in this situation. The guy making owl hoots is the normal one in this situation. I know how to solve this problem. I'll pretend to be an owl is something that no one with a mind has ever said, except, apparently, Ted.
Yeah, the story does not end there. That's where I stood up before stepping into the black maw of the mangrove swamp. Behind me, I heard yelps and gasps hissing from a dozen little throats. Naturally, the great storyteller was sure they had all hallucinated due to his great storytelling skills. Within a moment, he was back into his gory story. That's when I gave one hell of a scream. That scout camp was deathly quiet that night, but their fire remained gigantic. I enjoyed watching Mr. Chubbs nervously tending to it himself. Unfortunately, our mysterious waiter did not reappear. Maybe my scream scared him too. So yeah, this is a story of him scaring a bunch of scouts. Just for the hell of it, because he can. Because he thinks their leader's fat.
Robert, this is okay, so the real story here is about how members of one persecuted group tend to lash out and persecute members of other groups that are themselves beset upon. This is a means by which the majority people and the people seen as quote-unquote normal in whatever sense divide and conquer and keep other people down. If we all work together, we could eat the rich or whatever. But so Robert W. Morgan believes himself to be a part of a minority of people that believes that Bigfoot exists, which, okay, granted, he technically is, and he believes that the man or the government or just, like,
the status quo.
Peter, Paul, and Mary down the street just all hate him and persecute him to some extent, and that Mr. Chubbs, which that's not his real name, and that the scout leader is a part of that world, and so he finds a flaw, what he perceives as a flaw, in the man's obesity, and he strikes at it like a 5-headed dick.
Absolutely. We didn't state this explicitly, but the monster of the week is not Bigfoot, it is Robert Morgan.
This is the second time the monster has been man, and it's been right both times.
Sure. Yes.
Also, I should say that I wanted to amend, or I wanted to correct something that I said here. Like, what Robert Morgan's looking for in making fun of obesity is acceptance by the mainstream.
Sure.
Because he thinks that's what the mainstream is putting down weirdos, and so he picks whatever brand of weirdo he is not.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's upset that it's acceptable to be obese, but it's not acceptable to hunt Bigfoot. Right.
Which, it's fine to do either is the real answer, but Robert W. Morgan doesn't know that because he has a victim complex, because he is in love with Bigfoot, and he can't find Bigfoot.
Right. There's another story here that I really want to... There's two main points of it. One, it's a pretty... it might be his best argument, or just the best story, or whatever. Basically, they found themselves around Mount St. Helens, and he hears a call that goes, quote, "Cock, cock, 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 cock." croaking, barking call. That's how it's written out. I believe that's 100% accurate.
So, a raven?
He later describes it to George Harrison, managing editor for the prestigious National Wildlife magazine, who and several other experts identify as a snow owl, and he, which would totally not be sounding off that time of year in that part of the woods, and it thinks that a forest giant imitating the sound of birds is a reasonable explanation.
So it's time to introduce a little concept called parsimony.
Yes.
Now, parsimony is also called Occam's razor, and it is the notion that when faced with two explanations, the one that takes the fewest number of steps to get from where you are to that explanation is most likely to be correct, the simplest option.
Yes, and in this case, Occam's razor is you misheard, or that's the bird that you don't think is
right.
here. You
misheard. You didn't do a perfect imitation of a bird you heard like a month prior. Right. Those are each one-step answers. There's also the notion that maybe this owl was just still in the area for whatever reason. Maybe it was sick or injured and couldn't fly somewhere else.
Sure.
Plenty of reasons why that owl might be there. The existence of Bigfoot's ability to mimic an owl, Bigfoot's decision to mimic an owl at that specific point in time. This is like so many more steps.
Oh, there's a further step from this that I didn't mention yet. Mm-hmm. So, oh, here we go. All right. He gets into the possible solution hit me like a runaway freight train. Anthropologists generally accept that the ancestors, to some, if not all of the Amerindian peoples, traversed the Bering Strait land bridge that once linked Asia to North America.
I've heard this story.
Yep. He gets into the fact that, hey, you know what are like Bigfoots? The Himalayan Yeti.
Oh, thank God. I thought he was going to say people. I thought he was going to say Native Americans.
No. He basically said, hey, if Native Americans did this, what if the Yeti did this too? And the Bigfoot's just like their, American cousin.
Okay, so he is not the progenitor of this theory. This is, I've listened to a lot of monster talk, and this is a pretty commonly asserted notion.
Yes. But he says, certainly all immigrants, large and small, would have crossed the tundra during the snowy owl summer mating season.
It's so oddly specific.
He thinks that this might be a heritage sound that's been passed on by these giants.
Oh my God.
So just another step away from Occam's razor.
That's so far removed from anything realistic. Can we also talk about how, that has nothing at all to do with the fact that the Yeti and the Almas and the Yeren are all incredibly similar to all the other forest giant type archetype creatures that live apparently all over the world wherever there's people. And also they live in what kind of large mammal, larger than a human, has a distribution that includes Key West, Mount St. Helens, Indiana, and has never been seen before?
Right, yeah. That gets into kind of the crux of the era of the Bigfoot ways. He was in Florida last story.
Yeah. The range can't possibly extend that far. At some point you have...
He calls them semi-nomadic.
You know what else is
right.
semi-nomadic? Things that don't... That's not semi-nomadic. That's cosmopolitan.
Sure. So he has one more story here. That's a little more believable. It talks about a close friend had a situation in Northeast Ohio where he heard what sounded like there's several dogs wildly barking, and it sounded like they were silenced by like an African lion, like a roar. Yeah.
It's my lion.
He later learned that 5 miles away, there was a wild animal breeding farm of some kind, and like where there were lions and tigers and bears.
Oh fuck!
good punch ups. So yeah, he imagined that the forest giant, like he posits that perhaps they heard that and recreated it.
Okay. Well, I mean, if they can pretend to be an owl, I can pretend to be a bear or something.
Sure. Let's get into the thick of things here.
By the way, we're
going
going pretty far over. I think this might be a special extended episode. I'm not worried about. Don't worry about timing so much.
Yes. Apologies to all you folk that are still with us.
That's okay. I for one am riveted, and I have to imagine that the listeners might also be.
Yeah, we're on step 7 out of 9, and it's all clean from here. Step 7: hairs, feces, smells, tracks, and signs.
So, I love the format of joke that's like an immediate lie. That's my favorite format. All right, talk shitty to me.
So, yeah, hair. He talks about how well, why not reduce errors and speed up your analyses by creating your own library of homemade microscope slides for field comparison?
Because that's crazy, is why, Robert.
Yes.
Answer to every question that starts with the word "why" in this book.
You don't think he should gather sample microscope slides for deer, bear, coyote, wolf, rabbit, squirrels, elk, and moose?
Okay. See, so if you're operating under the supposition that Bigfoot's real, then it might help to collect fur and hair from different parts of different animals. Okay.
This is a personal question I want to get into. Why not ask your local zoos, museums, or wild animal shelters to contribute samples of various tail, mane, leg, belly, muzzle, and back hairs when available? If someone came to the zoo and was asking for animal hair samples, what would you say?
Okay. So, no. I don't have the authority to do that. And also, I am pretty sure that the zookeepers can't do that. Like, there are certain species that are no contact. For example, all great apes. Which, that's a real monkey wrench, pardon the pun.
Yeah, right.
Great apes are typically a no-contact species per Association of Zoos and Aquaria guidelines because it's so easy for them to catch diseases from us. Gorillas, in particular, are being ravaged by Ebola right now, so are chimps.
Aw.
Yeah, no, that's a real problem. But the museum, I think, would be a much, much better choice for Robert if he wanted to go there and say, like, hey, I'm an amateur wildlife biologist. Like, shoot, at the Academy of Natural Sciences, it's every department has a curator, but shoot the curator of the collections something, or like the sub-curator, or however the museum's structured, of like the mammalogy department, and just say, hey, I'd like to look at some hair samples that you might have for my own personal references, just for to create a kind of catalog that I can compare against slides of hair samples that I find in the wilderness. And this is a situation where you probably actually shouldn't mention that you're a Bigfoot hunter.
Right, yes. So maybe he did this in like the wrong order here, and like that kind of criticism from the scientific community is what upset him.
Yeah, honestly, if I can say anything about this book that is that Robert Morgan might be able to understand, it's that it is very poorly structured. Yes.
Speaking of which, feces. I don't want to get into this too much.
Oh boy. But well, let's
he's pro. First of all, disposable gloves, forceps, plastic bags, laboratory grade face masks, respirators, biodegradable antiseptic soap, all that stuff.
I'm glad this guy was prepared for COVID at least.
Yeah, he had no problem with that. But yeah, he asked the question on the top of this page: Where could you keep scat before you analyze it?
Okay, first
in camp, you might stash your little treasures in a specially dedicated and labeled ice chest, not with your food.
So, My question is, how exactly does he think he's going to analyze it?
Yeah,
because what I imagine is he gets out his Fisher-Price microscope and just, like, shoves it into the lens. And it's like, definitely a Bigfoot. I'm one step closer to finding him. And then he shoves his fingers up his nose and pokes his own brain out.
In the following story here, he describes in Washington State, he and his companion, Peter Lipiso.
It is amazing how many friends this man has.
Yeah, he's well connected, certainly. That the two of them discovered a 2.5 gallons of day-old feces. Gallons. You know why he's measuring it in that amounts. Because he got out his freezer and his safety gloves and got to work. But basically,
I think you don't typically collect scat samples and, like, bring them back to home base. I think usually that's something you don't have to do.
Now, I think his, in the following paragraph, kind of describes his MO in here. He's kind of like looking for something that describes the diet of this creature.
All right, that's
or like
something
what,
you can do in the
what
field.
left this behind. Yeah, so he finds fragments of bone and stuff like this. So it that eliminates herbivores such as elk, deer, or moose. And moreover, no black bear is large enough to make such a massive evacuation.
I don't think you have any perception of how big a black bear is, or how big of... This guy has failed to understand that bears shit in the woods. I'm just going to point that out. That is a literal failing on his part.
It is. But yeah, no, he describes it like the grizzly bear being the only idea, but then he sent it to a lab and they're like, this wasn't a grizzly bear.
Okay, what he did was he sent some, like, old, like, year-old sample of shit to the lab, and they were like, it's inconclusive, and he was like, that means it's Bigfoot, I conclude.
Yeah, so, despite my urgings, he refused to make that specific finding public, because he felt that it might lend weight to my arguments against killing even a single specimen. So he's, back to, like, animal friend Robert Morgan. He, like, he's afraid of people coming to hurt the Bigfoot.
Honestly, this is an argument that, like, the kill or no kill thing is a real argument in the Bigfoot community. And I've always been on the side of pro-kill. They've been hiding for long enough.
Yeah, it's truly to get an answer.
Yeah. However, that is under the supposition that Bigfoot is real. I am operating under the supposition that Bigfoot is not real, and therefore the no-kill rule is actually probably really good, because it saved a lot of just shadows and bears and people from getting shot.
Right. So he goes on to, in a really funny way, he says, quote, moreover, such a revelation would also crush science's invisible wall of resistance that prevents it from accepting the reality of the forest giants.
It is true, I can project force fields out of my hands like in The Invisible Fucking Woman.
The findings would also shatter the foundations of many organized religions who claim that Homo sapiens stand alone in the pyramid of the animal kingdom, because man alone stands on two legs.
What religion says that? I don't even think creationism would really be that shaken by that. I think they would be like, it's another ape, and science would be like, well, yeah, I guess, and they'd be like, shut up, and we'd be like, no, stop, you're bad.
Yeah, again, it's everyone against this guy. It's science, it's religion, it's the world versus Robert W. Morgan.
Only Bigfoot understands him.
That's why, that's why he needs this bond to happen. There's a footnote I want to stop for really quick here that says, I had already been instrumental in instigating the world's first ordinance against killing or harming a forest giant, which carries a $10,000 fine. It is treated as a...
I will pay that if it means killing Bigfoot.
It is treated as a joke by the present administration because of the heat they took at the hands of an ignorant media. He's against everyone.
I mean, yeah, wait, a present administration. As far as I know, that is a state ordinance. I don't think that's federal.
Yeah, so statewide. And what state? He's been across the United States.
Yeah, and everyone knows Bigfoot doesn't go to Canada.
Yeah.
But I think it's Washington or something. I don't know. But, like, I mean, there's a way to actually contextualize this law in, like, if you think something's Bigfoot, that's not a good enough reason to shoot it. Okay, that's a real law that you could pose, because that would prevent people from accidentally shooting, like, fat hikers that they see or something. Like, oh, I hate fat people. I hate women. I love Bigfoot so much.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of push past tracks here. It's basically the same story that I gave a while ago, earlier, about Bigfoot hunters that were tricked by a local because they dared talk to people. And he goes on about, in a very detailed way, and he's got some pictures and stuff like that about how you can make your own kind of, basically, and this is a good tip for a Bigfoot hunter. It's, you fill a pit with sand and stuff like that, and walk on the beach, and observe the way that humans walk, so that when you're out in the field and you see them that looks like footprints, you might identify it as near human, or something like that. What kind of gaits, or what kind of strides is this creature making?
Okay, that's interesting. It does kind of suppose that everybody walks around barefoot, which is not true.
Right, people usually wear shoes.
Yeah.
However, so if you see footprints that are barefoot, then obviously. He has a footnote here about how...
Footnote.
He starts the story with, it was afternoon before I took a break to fetch some thick coffee and a can of sardines. Sardines, an excellent pocket meal for on the trail, rich in oil and protein.
If you're going out into the wilderness in bear country, please don't bring oily, smelly sardines. Thank you and goodbye.
It's so terrible.
Robert will get eaten Morgan.
This story goes on to about how he got really close to a forest giant one time, and he says, now you understand why I urge you to never underestimate their intelligence and their power to reason. Our arrogance gives them one hell of an edge. This chapter ends with the pride and joy of Robert Morgan's collection here. A collection of Bigfoot memorabilia and stuff. And I imagine this is the price tag on it because he talks very closely about how he never shares this stuff.
I'm imagining like a shrine.
Well, it's more
just a small shrine of like clippings of hair and stuff that he has in his house next to like a picture of like Jesse McCartney or something.
A skeptic might say that this is just a couple of rocks and sticks that have been placed somewhere by a human and later discovered by him. However, he's adamant that these pictures and photographs were taken far in the wilderness where people rarely frequent and were perhaps left there by forest giants, and shows like logs with like rocks stacked on top of them. And like, little teepees with sticks from all over the area.
Now,
as well as like a little kind of wreaths and halos and places where like twigs and branches like intertwine, like make little circles and stuff like that.
So, and I'm gonna say either pareidolia or kids just messing around, like.
Yeah, if a forest path is rarely frequented by humans, and a human was through there and they stacked some rocks in like a sturdy spot, they're not going to be like moved.
Also, is this a path?
Right? He says wilderness, but
okay.
It's these are all still life pictures.
Like, so there's no humans could have stacked rocks this way.
No, humans could have very easily. There's nothing supernatural about the way these rocks are stacked.
No. And also, like, rarely traversed by humans doesn't mean never.
Yes, exactly.
Like, when you said the teepee thing, I thought about how our cousin Vic and our grandpa used to like build teepees out in the woods in this like place in the mountains where my grandparents had a timeshare, and
Right.
like they came back every couple of years and they saw like the teepees they had built were still up, and there were kind of imitation teepees spreading all around the woods in that area, like other like kids and stuff had been trying to do it, and it was like this nice little moment of community. And Robert would come up to this and be like, aha, there's so many Sasquatches and they have a timeshare. Like,
yeah, he probably would. The teepees shown here are very minimal, but that's the kind of the apex of his story. However, there's two other steps here, and we're getting late, but I still like to cover
this
them.
might be a two-parter.
So, we might be able to split this right down the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we're already almost at 2 hours, so.
Yeah, so I want to say that, hey, step 8, how to invite a giant to tea.
One more time?
Step 8, how to invite a giant to tea.
All right. This is,
so he says
getting a
that
little British now. Our bookish middle schooler, high schooler girl in the back row is now getting into Doctor Who all of a sudden.
He makes a very clear point here, and read into this as you will. Quote, rest assured that your visitor will be a young and adventurous male. With the rare exception of the Paris and Gimlin film, females are rarely viewed, almost as rarely as are the very young or elderly. So he's like, yep, it's the young dudes that show up.
Well, Robert, I suppose we all have a type. You just please stop committing crimes against Cub Scout troops.
Yes. He talks about how forest giants are like they're semi-nomadic. He envisions them having a scout system where there's a couple on the outskirts, and that's like the ones that he wants to do. And he talks about a very, as you said earlier, anal retentive routine of every time, like setting up his campsite very consistently over and over, and like leave it alone so that's, he can see if anything's been altered or changed by a visitor. He basically wants to leave it. He sets up his campsite in case a forest giant stops by, and he keeps careful notes about where he leaves everything, so that if he leaves out his scissors and they're slightly changed, then someone has clearly come by, picked them up, and put them back down. Which makes sense. If that's ever happened to him, I do not know.
No, I mean, also, wind.
Oh, man.
Wind exists.
I'm going to pull a couple quotes here. Quote, strive to make your camp an island of trust. The items that you proffer for a giant's inspection, as opposed to consumptions, should consist of small articles of common to all camps. So and so and so on. He talks about signal mirrors, an old toothbrush, dental floss. Yeah, and this is the best one. Inside your tent, you might also use a colorful dyed feather as a bookmark. At a certain page of a magazine whose cover displays a picture of local nature that might catch the giant's eye. I have anchored such a selected page with a stone and placed everything where it can be easily seen but protected from wind and rain. Blah blah. But he said, what magazine cover might catch the eye of a giant? I suggest National Geographic, Birds and Blooms, Nature, etc. In publications that display illustrations of gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans in gentle contact with humans. The image of Jane Goodall and her chimpanzees, or of the folks at the Gorilla Foundation working with Coco, are ideal. In this manner, you will suggest to your visitor that you are in tune with passive encounters with living beings other than humans. Yes, that is exactly it.
Passive
you are
encounters.
In tune for passive encounters.
Robert Powerbottom Morgan. That one's not even a W, but boy, is it true.
Robert No Strings Attached Morgan.
Robert
whatever, Morgan.
Robert, friends with benefits, Morgan.
Robert with benefits, Morgan.
No, there's no saving. He put the magazine in his tent for Bigfoot to find. Just gonna point that part out. Like, oh, a feather. Oh, hey, Bigfoot, what are you doing? You, in my tent? Yeah, I was just reading this. Wait, you can talk? I know lots of things, Bigfoot. Shuts door of tent provocatively.
Alright, there's another really woke moment here that I want to get into. We've seen some crazy stuff lately, and this one is actually a crazy thing that he refutes. That he says, if you are a woman, or have a female companion, do not be influenced by the nonsense that giants are especially attracted to a woman during...
Did he actually say during
He says during menses.
Okay, well, that's a weird way of putting it, but yeah, no, that's a real thing that people
Sure.
That people put out.
And he's against it. He says that beliefs stem from ignorant and chauvinistic attempts to keep this a man's work.
You know what's amazing? Is that he's right. I actually have
totally
heard
right.
stories from some of my colleagues about how they once worked with a male geologist who would refuse to take women into the field because he said that their menstruation would attract bears. Like, this guy literally believes in The Office.
Yeah, right. But he says, on the contrary, some of the best researchers I had the privilege of working with are women. In general, they're more patient, compassionate, less fearful, and more observant of minutiae, and are not as given to bravado and bluster as their male counterparts.
That's a pretty broad generalization, but still.
Yeah, but it's in the right. It's coming from a good place, I think.
It's again Robert well-meaning Morgan.
He's fat shames, but he's pro women in the field.
This guy's all over the place vis-a-vis wokeness.
Yeah,
just vis-a-vis treating other people like people, I should say.
So we're winding down here because for the third time he comes back to your point, which is like, while a force giant may pick up something to examine it, they usually replace it fairly close to its original position. Note the words "fairly close." The time to come alert is when something in your camp has been moved, yet has been replaced only near its position, blah, blah, blah. So when this occurs, you may assume that you're under observation. React the same as when you find fresh tracks. Put everything down. Hold your arms out with open palms. And pivot in a circle as you speak to the woods. Make 3 complete revolutions before adding one simple act that could prove important to your mission. So, just picture this guy T-posing, spinning around.
Bigfoot, it is I, Robert. I have come to make love to you, Bigfoot. It is me, Robert, your love.
So grab the item they chose that had caught their attention, and now is the time to offer it to them. Hold it out on open palms, and speak softly as you walk to the place where you left other gift items.
I gotta show my family this episode now so that they know what I was talking about just then.
Yeah, just return. He basically says, do it, and if nothing happens after a full week, remove it and begin the cycle again. Just...
God. This guy is so thirsty.
He is.
Thirsty for squatches. Squatch that thirst,
He tells a story about how some neighboring family think they saw Bigfoot, playing in human poop. That a neighbor was dumping, and he really gets into that a lot, way too often for my personal comfort.
Aha, I see. He's very interested in scat. That's I
don't want to. Step 9, the final step.
I do want to say I remembered that he did advocate at one point putting poop in your personal freezer somewhere separate from your food. And I just wanted to create a little song that I had composed for aspiring field biologists, and it goes a little something like this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to ever put animal poop in your freezer. That's it. That's the song.
Oh, that's good. That's a good point.
You know what?
I think we're equally educational to Robert Morgan right now.
Yeah, no, this is really a two-way street here.
All right, so the final chapter, step 9, after your perfect encounter.
Oh,
so
how long do you have to wait to call?
Yeah. When do you? So there's a story in here about how he had 2 different experiences with newspapers and stuff like that. And how one person actually went out with them, and he was a real tenderfoot. That he is not a big fan of his behavior and stuff like that.
Tenderfoot is the name of my fanfic now.
Oh, awesome! Yep. But yeah, he has a final his final observation, which I'll read. But before the final part here, quote: a final observation. As you proceed in your personal research for untainted truth, you may experience change in your cognitive values. What was important before an encounter with a giant may afterwards seem petty and mundane. You may also experience mood swings and lose patience with those nearest to you whom you choose to expend their own heartbeats worrying about who won what Grammy or Academy Award and who in Hollywood is dating whom. Don't be angry with them. They have chosen not to enter the graduate program in the University of Life. That is their right. However, from your successful encounters, you'll have acquired every reason to become a contributor to life's true knowledge, and, as important, a preserver of life in all its forms.
This guy's like a born-again Bigfoot fucker.
It's crazy that he just...
He's writing this with a tone like he found religion. Like...
Oh. Alright. You haven't found the bullet. I'm going to end this book with the bullet point list at the beginning of step 9.
Please.
Which is following... Yeah.
Please tell me that he makes the argument that Jesus Christ was actually a Bigfoot who just taught us to love each other and the Romans killed him because he was a Bigfoot.
No, it's just... This is the true... this list is true insanity. And it is... isolated, concentrated insanity. If there's nothing else you should... if you have not been paying attention to this episode, I beg for your ear as I read this list to you.
Friends. Romans. Countrymen. Stop killing Jesus, who is a Bigfoot, and lend me your ears.
Following your perfect encounter, you may expect that you will feel euphoric, followed by utter exhaustion.
Oh boy.
So that's number 1.
Darling, I can't explain. Where did we lose our way?
Number 2. Showers will last until the hot water runs out.
Tell me how a perfect love goes wrong.
You will have the urge to tell everything to everyone you meet. You'll have the counter urges to keep it all a secret.
That's called anything. Tell her about it. I'm just gonna keep doing these.
You will relive your encounters in dreams with varying endings.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
You will have new respect for life in all its forms.
Oh.
You'll become acutely aware of our insensitivity to animal life. Your trust in popular views of history and science will be tested.
Oh my god.
You'll feel that if you don't rush back to that special campsite, you will lose your new giant friend forever.
Like, oh my gosh, it's like, just like, show up at his doorstep. Like, in your eyes, the light they...
This is the crazy part. This is where it gets into like the real, like we were saying earlier, how there's like a behind the scenes stories here. Listen closely. Some fundamentalist sects may attack you for preaching evolutionism as opposed to their version of creationism.
No, hang on.
This is the backstory I was gonna. So Your boss may not appreciate employing someone who claims to have seen a Bigfoot.
Oh, no.
You may lose your job or a promotion.
Oh no! You might write a book about Bigfoot.
Your family might leave you.
Oh, poor
Your friends
Robert.
might call you crazy. But back to the list. Academia will publicly shun you while proving supportive behind closed doors. No. Don't listen to the Smithsonian. You're totally right here, man. TV's newscasters are seldom fair or sympathetic. I've been known to challenge them to put a pack on their backs and spend a few months with me out in the woods so they can earn the right to criticize. And finally,
fucking a Sasquatch with Robert.
The written news media can be worse. In the dozens of articles I've had written about my work, less than a handful were accurate. So yeah, no. Again, to the point of his poor writing, that list could have been ordered way funnier. But you get the idea.
I mean,
after you climax your you'll lose your job, and it's man, that's a good book.
Poor Robert has really fallen on some rough times because he's just trying to start a new religion about doing it in the woods with a Sasquatch.
Yeah, I would say that the book for the most part is a harmless, fantasy of this outdoorsy guy who, perhaps had an encounter or something, and he, it's definitely promoting peace and openness in a lot of ways, besides the, the weird hate for other groups and stuff like that. But by the time you get there, it's a tragedy of sorts.
It's
Robert's wet face Morgan.
Wet face.
Like he's crying.
Aw. Oh no.
Yeah.
Don't cry, Robert. I mean, your life is horrible and you've committed yourself to a god that isn't there and doesn't understand you called Bigfoot. But, oh no. This is a broken man. This is not a funny episode of the podcast.
No, it is not.
Honestly, this was one of the impetuses for Finding Monster Right, was the existence of this book.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Correct.
one of your podcast ideas was just going through your bookshelf full of its very strange residents.
Oh yeah, this is probably the weirdest one on there from the Bigfoot category. But I've got like a couple dozen on outdated UFOs and other supernatural occurrences. But yeah, no, I'm happy that we finally covered it and shared Robert Morgan's truth with the world.
I am glad that we could share Robert Morgan with the world and bring these two worlds together. Two worlds, one family.
Yeah, I hope he's out there living his truth. I think he's still alive, too. He's 80-something. He's still just hanging out in the woods, and he's doing meditative stuff, and he has the good intentions. I just hope that, he's got lots of friends, too. That's the other part.
He does have a number of friends that support him in his hobby, and that's pretty
valuable.
Good. Also similarly, I wouldn't fire somebody who believed in Bigfoot. I don't think that's enough of a reason.
I agree. Unless they become obsessive about it, and they are supposed to be surveying pipes to be laid down, and they're off surveying Bigfoot tracks and scats.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
But okay, so ending with our only segment here, final rating place.
We really do not. This podcast was going to have segments at some point.
Yes, I think segments work when we don't have something else to talk about.
Right.
This whole episode was a giant who's the monster and who's the man, really.
Yeah. And
I think
the answer is when it comes down to Robert and his perfect encounters, Bigfoot is both.
Right. So as far as the forest giants that Robert Morgan describes, I would definitely give him a pretty high, an 8 out of 10 maybe, because they seem pretty chill. They're peace loving. They've got a scout system, and they've got communication with each other. They're clever, and he operates under the philosophy that these things are out there and they live like in the forest away from us. I think having a creature that's secretive is almost fascinating.
I'm gonna give them a 2 out of 10. The forest giants, because like if you're so smart that you can talk to each other and you call each other Willie and Wilhelmina, then like why don't you have a city? Why don't you have a secret Bigfoot city where Robert can live? Why won't you talk to Robert, Bigfoot? He's so crazy over here in man's world, and he just wants to love you. Just open yourself up to him, Bigfoot. You fucking creep. Just honestly, just
can't you see what he's doing for you? He's in front of you with his arms open wide.
Hear him out, okay? He needs you.
Yeah.
What are you doing in the woods, sleeping in the sun? Do something with your life, Bigfoot.
This relationship requires communication. Speaking of which, Robert Morgan, what do you vote him? What do we give him?
Honestly, like, as a, like, tragic hero,
10 out of 10?
He's pretty tragic, yes. In terms of tragedy, yeah. 10 out of 10.
As a human being, like 5 out of 10?
As a human being...
He's got some good points and some bad points.
I'll give him like a 4 out of 10 because I do not want to get... I don't want this to be certified fresh.
Oh. So that's up at like 70.
Oh, isn't it? Well, I mean, it's 4 out of 10 then.
Okay.
Still.
He's rotten both ways. So, yeah. I'm sorry, Robert Morgan. I do not look forward to... I hope we don't cross paths in the future. However, I hope
God.
To talk more about
I didn't even
Bigfoot.
think of that. This is a real person.
Yeah.
Alright, whatever. Honestly, this is what happens when you write a book, is you open yourself up to goofs and japes. We are the new media laughing at him from a new front.
So if Robert Morgan, if you are listening to this, and you're not still crying, I
don't want to live in a reality where Robert Morgan has listened to this episode.
Okay, cut that out then.
No. Like, proceed with what you were saying, but like I want to pretend that it's not possible.
No, Robert Morgan, I respect you as an outdoorsman. I would love to spend an afternoon in the woods with you.
I would love to spend 2 or 3 months in the woods with you, not a weekend soiree. No, that's how I die. I think Robert Morgan, lover of all things alive, would be perfectly justified in killing me after this episode.
Robert will kill you, Morgan.
Also, Wilhelmina is the same name as Mina Harker from Dracula, and like, now that's a crossover.
Robert Wilhelmina Morgan.
Oh, okay. I mean, like, oh man, if Bigfoot bites you, do you turn into a Bigfoot and you get to live in Bigfoot City?
That's what he's praised for. That's why he opens his hands. He's like, please, snack on me.
You know, yeah, like, eat of my flesh. Like, that's where...
Make me a werebear like you.
You're just saying that because you recently got turned into a werebear in D&D.
I'm correct.
I have greater restoration. We could get rid of it at any point, but, like, it's not happening.
Thank you for joining us for this overlong, or maybe 2 regular-sized episodes.
This is 2 regular-sized episodes, I think.
See you next time when we venture out of the forest and into the darkness.
Ooh.
For our next episode.
I love how our episode cliffhanger, or like our teases for next episode, don't necessarily correspond to what the next topic actually is.
No, it's almost like I'm making them up every time I say them.
All right.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. And if you see a sexy man-ape in the woods, you know exactly what to do. And that is T-pose for dominance while singing Mariah Carey.
Yes, and then Robert Morgan will come towards you and give you a hug.
Aw. Comfy pasta. I like it.